One of the greatest fears people have is public speaking. It's not as complicated as you might think. Today at Live on Purpose TV, how to prepare a speech or give a talk. A big part of what I do is speaking, presenting, sharing ideas and principles from the stage or from the microphone. And I get a lot of questions because of that. How do you prepare a speech or a talk? What are the keys that go into that? I'm also the past president of the National Speakers Association Mountain West chapter, which has given me a chance to hang out with some really phenomenal people who also make public speaking part of their business or what they do. It's kind of funny because one of the number one fears that people have is public speaking. In fact, on a lot of lists that you can find, it comes in above death. Think about it. Jerry Seinfeld said this. He said, that means that the guy giving the eulogy at the funeral would rather be in the box. It's kind of funny that we fear it so much. A friend of mine, Dan Clark, who is an amazing Hall of Fame speaker, he said, really, it's not public speaking that is the number one fear. It's not speaking well that is the number one fear. And when you think about it, that makes a whole lot of sense. It's not so much the speech that we fear, it's fearing the failure of not doing well as we prepare that speech. So maybe a couple of points will help to put us in position to create or prepare and prepare for better speeches and talks. This is also, I believe, one of the best things that you can do to improve your effectiveness in any career. In any career. If you can improve your spoken communication, it's going to have a huge impact in a lot of ways. So let's take a look at what we can do. First of all, this is huge, and that's why I'm putting it first. It's not about you. It's not about you. It is about your audience. It is about the people who are going to be enhanced and enriched as a result of you being there on the stage or on the mic. So this helps with the anxiety piece too, because as long as we're feeling anxiety, where's our focus? It's on me. Yeah. Get the focus off of you. This is not about you. This is about the people who are blessed by what you do. So get the focus back onto the audience. So let's say that you're giving a speech to a Rotary Club, for example, or a local lodge of some fraternity, whatever it is. You're giving this speech. Have the first thing on your mind be that audience. Who's in that audience? What is it that they're coming to this meeting for? What do they need to get from this in order for this to be a successful outing? That's where we start, okay? When your focus is there, it's going to go a whole lot better, trust me. And you'll have less anxiety too. So number one, it's not about you. Number two, we're going to use the rule of three. All right, there's something magical about the number three, and this will help to simplify your preparation for the speech and the delivery. The rule of three basically means that you're going to have three main points. Three main points, not four, not seven, three. Narrow it down to three. The human mind is able to comprehend and track three things a whole lot better than a longer list, and it makes more sense than two. So come up with 3 points, 3 main ideas, 3 principles that you want to share as part of your speech or your presentation. As you come up with those 3, the next step is to think about stories. Primarily stories. You can also use illustrations or examples or data. Stories is what will connect the best with your audience. What stories can you think of that illustrate or support the 3 points? Ideally, you want to find your own stories. Okay, there's a lot of stories out there that have been published. Some of them are very popular. For your best presentation, you want those stories to be something that has happened to you or that you are directly aware of. Here's a little word about ethics too. And I know probably most of you aren't into the business of professional speaking. It's especially important there. But even if you're just giving a talk in church or at some community event, to use someone else's story is really kind of a form of plagiarism. Now, unless you have some particular way that that connects to you or some interpretation of it that is unique to you, you don't want to steal somebody else's material. Okay, so here's an example. I'll just use this one because a lot of us are familiar with it. Some people are familiar with the story of the person who's down on the beach throwing starfish back out into the water. This one has come up a lot in my association, the National Speakers Association, because it's been overused. And it therefore becomes a really great example. So you want to make the point that every individual matters. And so you tell the starfish story, right? Where picking up starfish, somebody challenges you, what good's that going to do? Well, it made a difference for that one as you throw it out into the water. You know the story, right? That story has been told so many times that it has become a hallmark of an inexperienced speaker. I'm not sure you want to show up that way, okay? And if you do, that's fine, but it's been used so many times that if you use that story, anyone listening will know that you've got kind of a limited amount of experience as a speaker. Here's how we get away from that. And I'm not saying it's not a good story. It is. That's why it's been used so much. But the point is it's not yours. And if it's overused, then it detracts from your message and the actual points that you want to make. So find your own stories. And you might use a story like the starfish story to come up with, well, what has happened in my life that is similar to that? Or what else would illustrate that point in an equally or a differently effective way? So find your own stories. While you're considering stories and illustrations, think about stories that are somehow remarkable or humorous that stand out in some way. Something that's bigger than life, something that you wouldn't expect. If I were to send you out into the parking lot here at my office and ask you to just notice what cars are out there and then come back in, and if I were to ask you, did you notice the white Toyota? You might think through, there were a lot of cars out there. I think about half of them were white, probably a percentage of those were Toyotas. What do you mean? What are you talking about? What if I were to ask you, hey, did you notice the pink Hummer? Oh yeah, you noticed that one for sure. See, it sticks out. It's bigger than life. It's different from what you would expect. So consider that as you're coming up with examples or stories to support your points. And then you add those stories in each of these 3 points that you've come up. In addition to having stories that stand out, you can use certain kinds of mnemonics. Now, a mnemonic is a memory trick. It helps someone to remember or encode the information that you're giving them. One of the common ways that I might use a mnemonic in a speech, let's say you got 3 points, okay? What if I wanted to make a point about positive psychology, or my 3 points in positive psychology are positivity, optimism, and perspective. Let's just say that I pick those as my 3 points. I'm going to come up with stories or illustrations that support each of those 3 things, and then I might put a mnemonic on it that helps you remember it. Something that makes it pop in your mind. I just gave you the mnemonic. Pop. Positivity, optimism, and perspective. So using the first letter of each of those words, I just made it pop for you so that you can later on, you can remember, oh yeah, he said something about pop. Now, what did the P stand for? What did the O stand for? This is called a mnemonic. You might use a word like I just shared with you. That's an example. You might use locations that people are familiar with. You can say, imagine with me that you're going down the hallway and you notice this room and then that room and then this room. See, that's more of, we call that a loci or a loci mnemonic, which helps people to attach it to a particular place, and then that is what triggers their memory. So those are just a few examples of what I'm calling mnemonic devices that you can use to help people remember the points that you're making. You've got your 3 points, right? You've got stories and illustrations and content to support those 3 points. When you're organizing your talk, put your second most powerful point first. Your second most powerful point first. Does that sound a little weird? Here's why. You're going to save the most powerful point for last. That's your anchor position. That's the point that people are going to remember the most as they remember your speech or the talk that you gave. So your 3 points, you're going to use your second most powerful point first. You're going to use your most powerful point last. So if there's a story you really like and it's attached to one of those points, save that for the last. You want to close strong. There's also what we sometimes refer to in the speaking industry as the roller coaster. Little roller coaster of emotions. You want to take them up. You want to take them down. Not too far. You don't want to leave people too far down. So your story, if it's a kind of a troubling, difficult kind of a story, you want to bring them back up after that. So that there's always this kind of up and down in the emotion and the intensity of the speech. And we could probably get into a lot more detail on that, but that gives you the sense. Now, since I've mentioned the emotional roller coaster, let me share with you another thought that came from my friend Dan Clark. Again, Hall of Fame, amazing, fabulous speaker. And he said that the really good speeches, the ones that really have the best impact, have 3 effects on people. It causes them to laugh. You think about the speeches you remember. There's something in there that tickled your humor a little bit, okay? Laugh. Think, because you really want to have an impact on how people are thinking. That's probably the reason you're giving the speech in the first place. And third, Dan said cry. Do we really want to make people cry in our talk? Well, maybe. And if not cry, you want them to feel something, some kind of emotional movement that gets them to not only remember what you said, but perhaps commit to do something differently after they've heard you speak. Laugh, think, and cry or feel something. The best speeches accomplish all 3. As you look at your 3 points, as you look at the purpose of your speech, remember it's not about you, it's about that audience that you're speaking to. And then as you craft the content of that speech, consider humor. You want them to laugh. Make sure that you're giving them something to think about and something that they can feel so that there's an emotional connection to that talk. I know that's a quick overview. There's other techniques, obviously, and strategies. Coaching is enormously helpful because we get stuck in our own way of thinking, and it's helpful to have someone else who can take a look at that and kind of nudge us along, help us get out of our own way. And associating, like with the National Speakers Association, there are local chapters all over who are there for that very purpose, to help people in the development of their speaking abilities in business. Groups like Toastmasters, where you can get together and practice those skills and get some feedback. All of those things are helpful. Keep in mind the rule of 3, using your own stories as much as you can. Get them to laugh, think, and feel something. You're going to have a great speech. Speaking, it's not as fearful as you might think. There are some simple things that you can do. Thanks for being here at Live on Purpose TV. Remember to subscribe and share.